All right, so the headline of today will be the New York Mets, the biggest takeaways from the opening series, because I do see a lot of people panicking already in the first three games. And then we're also going to talk about the Yankees torpedoing, no pun intended, their way through the Milwaukee Brewers. But let's start it off with the Mets. Yesterday, I went live after the game, kind of vented my frustrations with the game because at the end of the day, I'm not worried about this team. I'm not going to overreact about this team 3 games in. Now, there are some key takeaways that I do think are early signs that I'm happy with. So I'm going to get into those. But the reason I was upset with the loss yesterday is because I thought it was a game we could have won. The pitching was great. Griffin Cannon was fantastic. The bullpen this series didn't allow a single run. Between the three starters, we had a 2.98 ERA. So when you only allow 6 runs in 3 games against the Houston Astros, you should probably win all 3 with this lineup that we have, or at least take 2 out of 3. And I thought yesterday we had numerous opportunities to drive in runs. We didn't capitalize. We only got 1 hit, and that 1 hit was from Juan Soto, a double off the wall. We shouldn't have even really scored if it wasn't for Jose Siri's heroics. Taking home plate on a ground ball to the pitcher, something we'll probably won't see very much. So, and the reason I was upset with the loss, like I said, is because on yesterday's pod, in 2022, 1 extra win in March or April, we don't have to deal with the San Diego Padres. So I hate when people say, oh, this loss doesn't mean anything. It's only 3 games in. This loss doesn't mean anything. No, it does. It does, because down the line, it could come to bite us because we're going to be in a tight race if we want to win this NL East, right? If we think the Mets can somehow top the Braves, top the Phillies in the NL East this year, it's going to be a tight race. So if we finish 2 games back, 1 game back, we're going to be looking at probably Saturday night's matchup where Griffin Cannon went 5.2 innings and only allowed 2 earned runs against a lineup featuring Yordan Alvarez, Jose Altuve, now Christian Walker joining the foe. This lineup's stacked. Yanier Diaz, Jeremy Pena, they have a very good lineup. And Clay Holmes kept us in a position to win the game. And then we also had Tyler McGill pitch his rear end off. He pitched great on Friday night. And then Griffin Cannon, same thing on Saturday night. So my first biggest takeaway from the series, the first series for the New York Mets in 2025, my biggest takeaway is the starting pitching. The starting pitching looked fantastic. And like I said, if you would have told me just 4 days ago, now I guess 4 days ago, yeah, the New York Mets going into this year against the Houston Astros, Clay Holmes is only going to allow 3 runs. Tyler McGill is only going to allow one run. And then we're going to have Griffin Cannon only allow 2 runs. I would have said, oh, well, the Mets are going to go 3-0. But they didn't. But the pitching was still fantastic. And I think that's a good early sign because last year we saw what this Mets pitching lab, Jeremy Hefner specifically, the pitching coach, can do with pitchers that have stuff, that have the ability to get outs, but don't really find the results. Like Sean Manaea, he was struggling to find the results, but they saw that he had the stuff before they brought him on board last year. They fixed him. Luis Severino, same thing. They knew he had this stuff. I mean, when he was with the Yankees, he was one of the best starters in the American League at some points of his career. Struggled in 2022, struggled in 2023, comes to the Mets in 2024 and resurges his career. Jose Quintana had a great year last year. So David Peterson, after the hip surgery, the Mets increased his sinker usage. His slider has looked much better in 2024 than in years prior. He became like a ground ball pitcher almost last year. So the Mets do something very special with these starting pitchers and with the bullpen guys too, like Max Kranick, where they find what they do best and they use it to their best interest. So Griffin Cannon pitched phenomenal. He was using his fastball a lot. He has a great changeup. Griffin Cannon's changeup is something that I really liked. And we got to keep in mind, this is a guy who had the most runs allowed last year in the American League, but he still pitched 32 starts. So All he has to do, one, obviously stay healthy. That's number one for every starting pitcher in MLB. Stay healthy. That is the most important thing. But number two is stay consistent. I'm not expecting him to go out there every fifth day and only allow 2 earned runs across 5.2 innings of work every single outing. No. But if he can give us 5-6 innings with three or less runs, we are going to win more games than we lose. And that's what I said to start this year. I said it in spring training. That's all we need. These guys, these back end starters, and the question mark Clay Holmes. That's all we need these guys to do. Now, Kodai Senga and David Peterson, I kind of expect them to start being front end starters. I'm not expecting Senga right away to just go boom and be a front end starter like he was in 2023, because he's coming off a year where he only pitched 5.1 innings. So that would be unfair, but I do expect him eventually to be that guy. I expect David Peterson to build off his 2024 season where he pitched to a 2.90 ERA. When Sean Manaea comes back in late April, we got some good news on him. I expect him to be a front-end starter. So that gives us 3 front-end starters. At least we should expect them to be front-end starters. And then Clay Holmes, a question mark. He's really the wild card in this rotation. I think he can pitch well. You know, we got to keep in mind, it's his first opening day start in his career, the first time he started since his rookie year. And he only made 7 starts in his rookie year, so it's really his 8th career start. And he looked a little shaky, of course, but he still kept the Mets in a position to win the game. Tyler McGill did the same thing. Tyler McGill not only kept the Mets in a position to win the game, but he pitched and he looked dominant. He was touching 98 with his fastball. He was averaging at 96. He looked great. Slider was there. Like I said, with his size, standing at 6'7", 230, he's a big guy. He can throw hard. He's got a ton of extension on that mound. So that 96 to 98 mile per hour fastball looks like triple digits when it's coming to a batter. So McGill is kind of also a wild card like Clay Holmes, because we all know how good Tyler McGill can be. It's just, can he be consistent? And like I said, just like Griffin Cannon, I'm not asking him to go out there every 5 days or every 6 once we get Manaea back and pitch like he did. But if he keeps the Mets in a position to win the game, their offense will do something. And I know they didn't do anything in the first 3 games outside of Juan Soto, but I have a feeling that this offense is going to be better than what it was in the first 3 games of the series. The only one I have a little bit of concern for is, honestly, not even too much concern, because it's the first 3 games. But based off the last 4 years, Francisco Lindor has started off the year slow in 4 consecutive years now with the Mets. I don't think it's going to happen in 5, because Francisco Lindor can go 4 for 4 on Monday against Miami, and then he's 4 for 15. And that's a really good batting average. I think let's go, what's that batting average actually? If he goes 4 for 4, I'm not saying he's going to go 4 for 4, but he'd be hitting 267 if he goes 4 for 4. So let's say he hits 350 in the Miami series. Then Lindor, everybody's going to be saying, oh, this guy is exactly what we need right now. And we do need a hot start from Lindor. I really hope we can get a hot start from Lindor. Listen, I'm not concerned. I'm not hitting the panic button just yet, but the panic button is inching closer a little bit. Because I get it. You know, he had a sac fly. I get it. You know, he moved Jose Siri over, but you can also make a case that if Jose Siri wasn't standing on second base, we don't move that runner over. We don't. So Lindor, I'm hoping against Miami, he tears the cover off the ball. I don't think, everybody's also saying it's like his mind isn't right now. His mind's all over the place because he has his 3rd child on the way. So he's probably thinking about that. And he probably is. I mean, his 3rd child's, you know, you're having a child, you're going to be thinking about it. But he's also a gamer. He posts every day. He loves baseball. He puts family first, and right after family, it's baseball. So Lindor, I don't think having a child is going to affect him. If anything, from what I've learned from Lindor, it's when he has a kid, he goes off. So I'm hoping it's the same thing. I hope he goes 3 for 3 with these kids, because the first 2 kids, right when they were born, Lindor went absolutely off. So I'm hoping the 3rd one does the same thing and he goes absolutely off. So I wish him and his family well, and I really hope Lindor goes off again. And like I said, panic button, don't hit it yet on Lindor. But if you are concerned, I completely understand. I'm not too concerned. I'm not hitting that panic button just yet. I'll probably give it another 4 or 5 games. And if he's only got 2, 3 hits, yeah, I'll be concerned because he is a slow starter. And maybe then we can start saying this is who he is. And that's not fun. He is an MVP caliber player. I'd like him to not start the season off slow, but I'm going to give it 4 or 5 games before I say, all right, I'm hitting the panic button. He's just known as a slow starter. Now I want to go to some of the other players in this Mets lineup. I want to go to Pete Alonso because Pete Alonso had not even a terrible year last year, but a terrible year for himself. It's crazy to think that when he hit 34 home runs and drove in 88 runs. But at the same time, we all know he wasn't clutch last year. He didn't come through in the big spots, except the playoffs. He did come through. And Pete Alonso has put together great at-bats so far. Only 3 games in, he put together great at-bats. He's laying off pitches out of the zone, which is nice to see. But at the same time, he's Pete Alonso. He's our 3-hitter. He's a guy in 3 out of 5 full seasons, not counting 2020, because it was 60 games. In 3 out of 5 162-game seasons, Pete Alonso has hit 40-plus home runs and 100-plus RBIs in 3 out of 5 of those years. We need him to be that guy this year. We need him to be that run producer. I'm not going to knock him for having great at-bats. But at the same time, I don't care if you draw a walk. I really don't. You can draw as many walks as you can, but at some point, we need Pete Alonso to hit. We do need Pete Alonso to hit. Only 3 games in, but I need to see him hit. I don't care if he walks 2 times a game. Like, that would be great. Don't get me wrong if he walks 2 times a game. But we also need him to hit. So I'm sick of hearing kind of right now, oh, well, Pete Alonso's having great at-bats. We need to see him drive in runs. That's what he's here for. He's getting paid $30 million to drive in runs, not just have great at-bats. Obviously, great at-bats are great, but we need him to also drive in runs. So, and he came up in a few big spots throughout this series, and he did have good at-bats. But I don't care about the good at-bats. He took 1 pitch. Him and Mark Vientos took both in game 2 of this series. Questionable walks. If the ABS was there, they might have struck out, but they didn't. But I'd like to see him swing at a pitch like that, drive the ball the other way, like he did in game 1, where he had a nice base knock the other way, just missed a home run in game 2. So he's putting the bat on the ball and he's driving it. But I don't want to hear he's just having great at-bats. I hate that. I want to see him drive in runs. Mark Vientos, let's hop into him. Mark Vientos came up. He honestly, there's nothing really to knock Vientos on right now because he had a clutch RBI double the other day. And then he scored on Jesse Winker's RBI single. He's playing some great defense at third base to start the year. Like Jose Altuve, did he necessarily get him out? No, but he prevented a double just yesterday. So I do like his defense so far. I think, he really wants to be a third baseman. He doesn't want to be a first baseman. We all know that. So all he has to do this year to not even have that scenario come out next year where it's like, well, Pete Alonso's opting out. We're going to have to move Mark Vientos third. All he has to do is just be above average defender at third and hit like he did last year and hit like he did in the playoffs. And he's going to be our third baseman for a long time. And a lot of people were also expecting a little bit of a decline. I don't see it. I don't see it. He has looked great to start the year. Yesterday, I thought if he hits that ball just maybe 5 inches above Jeremy Pena, we tie that game. He hit a 108-mile-per-hour line drive just in the wrong spot. Kind of like what Brandon Nimmo did in game 1. So, Vientos, you can't really knock him. He's hitting the ball hard. He's got pop. The results will come for Vientos. All right, let's talk about Mr. Brett Beatty, because Brandon Nimmo, we already know how I feel about him. I talked about him a lot yesterday. I'm not expecting too much out of him, but with runners on, that's where he did his damage last year. So I'm hoping he continues to do that. What up, Jonathan? How we doing, man? Hope all is well. How you feel about this first series, man? Let me know. Let me know. But yeah, I want to talk about Brett Baty because a lot of people are already starting to say we got to get Brett Baty out of this lineup. Brett Baty has had 5 at-bats. We got to give him at least 50 at-bats before we start calling him back down to AAA, at least as Mets fans, because he's going to get, I think, at least 50 at-bats to prove himself that he's a major leaguer or he's just a guy who rakes in AAA and can't figure it out. And I also hear some Mets fans saying they'd like to keep Brett Baty in the lineup to build up his trade value because if he rakes, you want to trade him. Why? If Brett Baty is raking, wouldn't you just want to keep him? Because we all know he's got potential. We all know he has the potential to be a 20 home run guy, a 65 RBI guy that hits 270 plus. He does have that potential. So if he does do that, why would you trade him? I get it, his trade value would be through the roof, but why would you trade Brett Baty if he's doing great? And I agree, Jonathan. I was just going to say this. Brett Baty and Francisco Alvarez, when he comes back too, get these guys torpedo bats. Like the Yankees are using it. It's legal. Do I love that they're using them? No. But you know what? If it's legal, why don't we use them? Juan Soto probably doesn't need a torpedo bat. Lindor, Alonso, probably even Vientos. But Brett Baty, why not? Try it out. Try out the torpedo bat. Let's see what it does for Brett Baty. Yeah, like Baty, I don't understand the Baty haters. I do understand the Baty haters because he has struggled through 3 years, but I don't understand the Baty haters already saying, get Baty out of here. He's had 5 at-bats. Give him 50. Let's see what he does in a 50 at-bat stretch. Because in a perfect world, McNeil becomes a super utility guy, right? Baty isn't the super utility guy. Baty's the everyday second baseman. And I think in a perfect world, Acuna also hits. And we move Acuna to center field. Or you can even, like if Baty and Acuna hit, they are going to be in the lineup. There's so many ways that the Mets can get these guys into the lineup. Jose Siri and Tyrone Taylor, as great as they are defensively and on the base paths, if McNeil and Acuna are hidden, and Acuna is great on the base paths too, you can just move Nimmo to center, Baty to left, and have Acuna be the everyday second baseman. I think that's a perfect world for the Mets. I'm not expecting that to happen, but if Baty's hidden and Acuna's hidden, why trade one of them when you could just move Nimmo back to center and then you have a stud lineup? Yeah, but like we already have a star-studded top 5. Further it if they're raking. So that's what I'll say on Baty and Acuna too. Acuna defensively, one little blunder in opening day, but I mean, Friday night, a dive and play. He kind of thought about going to second, but he made the right choice, just getting the runner out at first. I mean, coming in as a pinch runner yesterday, swiping that bag at second, you got to give him credit there, putting himself in scoring position. We come through with a base knock there. We score. Like I said, Mark Vientos, he hits that ball 2 feet to the left, 2 feet to the right, 2 feet above Jeremy Pena's glove, and we tie that game. So good for Acuna there. I like what I've seen out of Acuna in its small little sample size so far. The great at-bat that he had on opening day. I think he went like 11 or 12 pitches, worked a walk. Like he looks ready. He does look ready. I get it. I was even saying it. He sucked in AAA last year. He sucked in spring training. But Acuna, I'd love for him to stay on the roster even when Jeff McNeil comes back. I'd love for that to happen. I don't know who they call down. Probably it's either going to be Acuna or Baty, it looks like. But I'd really love for both of them to stay on this team somehow. Because Acuna off the bench, coming in as a pinch runner at the very least, we saw what he can do. Like I'd really like to somehow keep Acuna on this roster, even when Jeff McNeil comes back. That's what I'll say on Acuna and also Baty. All right, now I want to talk about this bullpen. Jonathan even mentioned it. Mets pitching was the best versus the Astros. Pitching was our biggest concern. I think we are in good shape. And I completely agree, Jonathan. The starting rotation are 3 question mark starters all kept us in a position to win the game. I touched on that. And now I want to talk about this bullpen. This bullpen, I said it before the season started, it has a chance to be sneaky good. Max Kranick looked electric in spring training, and he had his first appearance in 2 years in the biggest spot of the season so far. And we got a lot of season left, but that might have been the biggest spot, might be the biggest spot for a reliever all year with the Mets, which is crazy to say because it was only the third game of the year. But you bring him in with one out, with the bases loaded, and he goes out there and he shuts down Yordan Alvarez. Like, what a performance by Max Kranick. What a performance to get us out of that jam, keep the game alive, keep us in a position to win. Because Max Kranick easily could have came into the game and he could have let up a base knock. And I still would have said, you know what? Okay, Max Kranick, I still want to give him some more opportunities. Like, he could have let the game loose right there. But he didn't. He kept us in the game. He got us out of a one-out bases-loaded jam without allowing a single run. So good for Max Kranick there. Jose Butto looked great out of the bullpen. Danny Young against 3 right-handers as a lefty on opening day. He looked great. Like, the Mets bullpen has looked fantastic. 9.2 total innings out of the bullpen in this opening series, and they didn't allow a single run. So you got to give not only the bullpen credit, but you also got to give Carlos Mendoza credit. But Reed Garrett looked fantastic in his inning of work. He put up 2 strikeouts. AJ Minter, he looked great as expected. Ryan Stanek picking up right where he left off last year. But I think the biggest part, the biggest excitement out of this bullpen, outside of Max Kranick, Yordan Alvarez makes me too, Jonathan. Me too. I think he's probably the most underrated superstar in all of baseball. Like, he's undoubtedly a superstar, and I'm not saying he's underrated, but in terms of superstars, like we talk about Aaron Judge, he is the best hitter. He proved it again through these first 3 games. Shohei Ohtani, even Juan Soto, Bobby Witt. Yordan Alvarez needs a little bit more love too. But back to the bullpen, I think the biggest takeaway from the bullpen, not just Reed Garrett, Minter, Stanek, Butto, Kranick, like, they looked great. But the biggest takeaway I have from this bullpen is Edwin Diaz. Edwin Diaz coming down there, locking down the save on Friday night. He was touching 98 with his fastball, shutting up those velocity concerns. He looked fantastic. And, last year he didn't pitch like he pitched in 2022. He put up a 3.52 ERA. He had 32 saves. But at the same time, no one was expecting Edwin Diaz to have the year he had in 2022 after missing the entire 2023 season. So he still pitched relatively well last year in 2024. In fact, he was the only guy we wanted to see come out of the bullpen in the postseason. But for him to come out there and just shut down the Astros, 1, 2, 3, no concerns. I mean, that's great to see. Didn't allow a hit, didn't allow a walk. His command was there, his fastball, touching 98, like I said. His slider looked great. If we get the shade of the 2022 Edwin Diaz this year, it changes the entire landscape of not only the bullpen, but of the entire team. Because in 2022, I really think the MVP of the Mets was Edwin Diaz. The amount of close games we were in, the amount of times he came in and locked down the end of the game for us was huge. And we already know that Edwin Diaz isn't just a one-inning reliever. He's not just a one-inning closer. Like for Buck Showalter in 2022 and for Carlos Mendoza last year, you don't just bring Edwin Diaz in the 9th inning. You bring Edwin Diaz in when you're facing the best part of the lineup. And if we get that Edwin Diaz, just a shade of the 2022 self, we're going to be in really good hands this year in the back end of games. Because when you take a look at his 22 stats, like I said, just a shade of it, a 1.31 ERA. He struck out 118 guys in 62 innings. It was unthinkable what he did. If he is that guy, if he is a top 3 closer this year for the Mets, we're going to win a lot of games. We're going to win a lot of games. And like I said, he can go multiple innings. So keep him fresh. Get him. I hope we see him at least once or twice against Miami, because that means we're probably going to be winning the game. And I hope Diaz just locks it down for us like he did on Friday night. So Edwin Diaz, good for him. I'm very happy that he had a clean start to the year. Maybe we all know Edwin Diaz is kind of a confidence guy too. Sometimes he'll have a blown save and he'll go on a bad stretch. But when he locks in, I don't think this is me being biased, but I don't think there's a better closer in baseball when Edwin Diaz is locked in. Even Devin Williams. Because 2022 Edwin Diaz was insane. 2020 Edwin Diaz, 1.75 ERA. Like, he's had 3 seasons where he's pitched to a sub-2 ERA. He's only pitched above a 4 ERA once in his career. So Edwin Diaz, throughout his career, has been a lights-out arm out of the pen. Lights out. So hopefully we get that Diaz this year. Hopefully we get the lights out, locked in Edwin Diaz, and the Mets will be winning a lot of games because of him. All right, before I wrap up on the Mets and give a little preview for Miami and what I want to see out of Senga, what I want to see out of Peterson, and the lineup, of course. We just want to see the lineup hit. But Juan Soto has been as advertised. Don't let any Yankee fans try to troll you. Look at Juan Soto's numbers right now. I know it's only 3 games in, but this guy has an on-base percentage of .556. He has gotten on base in every single game multiple times, hits the double off the wall, hit the big home run on Friday night, and he's hitting .333. He's got a hit in every game. He's slugging .833 with an OPS of 1.389. Do I expect him to keep these numbers up all year? Obviously not. That'd be dumb. But if he can hit above .290, if he can get on base at least 40% of the time, and his on-base percentage throughout his career is .421, so that's not expecting too much, we're going to get a very good year out of Juan Soto. Every time Juan Soto comes up to the plate, you have confidence. And we haven't had a guy like that where every single time he steps up to the plate, you have confidence. As great as Pete Alonso was, as great as Francisco Lindor was over these past few years, I didn't have confidence every time they stepped up to the plate. There was still a little part of me that was like, oh, man, I'm a little nervous right now. They're not going to come through. But every time Juan Soto steps up to the plate, I'm like, let's go. Let's go. Like, get me. Francisco Lindor's up at plate with the bases loaded, with 2 outs. Just walk. Get me Juan Soto. Get me to Juan Soto. Because every time he steps up to the plate, he's going to put together a great at-bat. And if he doesn't get a walk, maybe he strikes out every now and then, like he did on opening day. Big whoop. 1 strikeout. Big whoop. But every time Juan Soto steps to the plate, I'm confident he puts together a great at-bat. And, like, for the guys hitting behind him, that's huge. Like, Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, and Mark Vientos have an opportunity to drive in a ton of runs this year with the guys hitting in front of them. So, I'm hoping. I am. Me too. I like Soto. He's just a different ball player. He is a different ball player. And he's only 26. I don't even think, as crazy as it sounds, I don't think we've even seen the best of Juan Soto because he's only 26 years old. And we got to get to the postseason because Juan Soto's at-bats in the postseason is the reason his postseason teams usually make a deep run. He won a World Series with Washington, got to the World Series with the Yankees. With the Padres in 2022, they got pretty far as well. When Juan Soto is on a postseason team, they go far because Juan Soto is built for the postseason. His postseason numbers last year were through the roof. He had over an 1,100 OPS. He hit over 320, and it's because of at-bats that he puts together. The long at-bats. You don't want to challenge him. And then if you don't want to challenge him, you can put him on. And then last year, it was Aaron Judge. And this year, it'll be Pete Alonso. Is Pete Alonso Aaron Judge? No, but we saw what Pete Alonso can do in the postseason. So having a guy like Juan Soto on your team is huge. For anybody that's saying he's overpaid, deal with it. I don't care that he's overpaid. I don't even think he's overpaid because I think in 4 or 5 years, we're going to see a lot of guys getting paid 50+ million. And in 4 to 5 years, Juan Soto is going to be 31 years old. So he's still going to be in the prime years of his career in 5 years, which is insane. All right. But the Mets going to Miami. We got Gary, Keith, and Ron back. No more national televised games, which I do love. And we got lucky. I'm not gonna lie. I love Rain Rondazzo. And Dontre Willis. I thought they put together a great performance on Friday night on the Apple TV game. It's definitely worth it. $10 a month. I know not everybody wants to just purchase Apple TV for a few Mets games here and there, but I will say this: if you're a big baseball junkie and you want to watch baseball games every Friday night, not just the Mets, let's say they're off on a Friday night, I would get Apple TV because they probably have the best national broadcast out of ESPN, out of Fox. I think Amazon Prime Video is going to put on a few games this year. Apple TV, in my opinion, is the best out of those. And I wouldn't be surprised with this new deal ending with ESPN that they start to shift to maybe a Friday night and Sunday night baseball with Apple TV. I really think they should. I think Apple TV just does that. And they also got some good shows. Severance is a great show. All right. But yeah, let's talk about the games coming up. We got the Marlins tomorrow. It's going to be a fun one because the Marlins aren't too good of a team. So unless we're facing Sandy Alcantara, which we will be facing Sandy Alcantara on Tuesday, it's going to be Senga versus Alcantara. So that's going to be a good game. But tomorrow we got David Peterson on the hill versus Cal Quantrill. Last year, he put up a 4.98 ERA in 29 starts with the Rockies. With the Guardians in 23, a 3.24 ERA, a 5.24 ERA. But last year, I'm looking at his numbers, and he let up 23 home runs. So this game, I expect the Mets to mash. The Mets need to mash. So David Peterson, I am still expecting him to go out there and shove. Last year, he had a career year, pitched to a 2.90 ERA, only allowed 8 home runs in 21 games. He struck out. How many guys did he strike out? 101 guys and only 121 innings. So he's not a strikeout pitcher, but you know what he is? He's a ground ball guy, and he gets outs. He lets the defense play behind him. We got a great defense. So let's see what we can do. So with the right-hander on the mound, we're probably going to see Brett Beatty and Jesse Winker in this lineup. Probably the same lineup that they rolled out just yesterday. So listen, they got to mash. And what I'm looking for, the guys I'm watching, like obviously Juan Soto, but the guys I'm really watching is Francisco Lindor and Brett Beatty in this lineup. I want them to produce. So that Beatty can shut his haters up and Lindor can shut his haters up. Pete Alonso, of course, I think we need to see a home run soon. Like, we're seeing so many home runs from Aaron Judge and the Yankees. I want to start hitting some home runs. I'm not going to lie. It would be pretty cool to see Pete Alonso put up even a multi-home run game or just one home run, Pete. Just one home run, Pete. We got to break that record this year. Let's get started off already. Come on. All right. But, yeah, so I'm expecting the Mets to match tomorrow night against Sandy Alcantara. I mean, we've had success off Sandy before, and then there's other games where Sandy has just absolutely dominated the Mets. I'm going to take a look at his stats versus the Mets throughout his career. He's got a 3-5 record with a 3.07 ERA in 15 appearances. The most recent appearance he had against the Mets was on March 30th of 2023. And he didn't pitch too well. He let up 3 runs over 5.2 innings of work. And then before that was 2022. He allowed 4 runs across 5 innings of work. But then he also had games like on July 10th of 2022. Happy birthday to my pops. That's his birthday. 7 innings with no runs allowed. So we've seen Sandy dominate the Mets, but we've also seen the Mets put up some runs against Sandy. So, and Sandy didn't look great in his first start by any stretch against the Pittsburgh Pirates. He did strike out 7 batters, but he also had 4 walks. And also it was his first game back since early 2023. So there's really like nothing you can hate on him for. But yeah, it's going to be a fun game seeing Senga versus Alcantara. 2 pitchers that, basically missed last year. Senga only 5.2 innings, so he basically did miss last year. So it could be an awesome pitcher's duel, and I'd be completely okay with that. But I'd be only okay with an awesome pitching duel on Tuesday night if we mash on Monday night, and we should, because Cal Quantrill last year, like I said, He led up 23 home runs in 29 games. We got to mash. And it can't just be Juan Soto. It can't, because Juan Soto was going to have a good series probably every single time this year. He's that good to the point where his slumps are like 2-3 games at most. That's it. So I'm expecting Soto to perform, but I want to see Francisco Lindor and Brett Beatty and Pete Alonso also to perform. Mark Vientos, I can't really knock him because he's been putting great swings on the ball. It's not just great at-bats. Like Pete Alonso has put together great at-bats. Mark Vientos put together great at-bats and great swings on the ball. So, but Pete Alonso did have a nice base knock, hitting a rope of a line drive on opening day to the right field. Over the right field line. So that was a great, hit from him as well. I want to see him go opposite field a lot more, be that complete hitter like he was in 2022, where he hit 271 and 40 bombs and led the league in RBIs. I'm not expecting him to do that this year, but it would be pretty cool if Pete Alonso can get back to hitting like 255, 260 plus. That would be nice to see out of Pete. And then also capitalizing with runners in scoring position. But I also like to see Brandon Nimmo, heat up a little bit. Nimmo, we all know he can be a great hitter. He's got a career 808 OPS. Going into last year, his career OPS was over 820. Last year was 100% a down year. But the one thing that Nimmo did last year was hit with runners on. He had a 299 batting average last year with runners on, had over a 950 OPS with runners on. I need Brandon Nimmo to produce. I need him to produce this year. All right, so David Peterson, give me 5-6 innings tomorrow night. Get me a Mets win, a big Mets win, maybe like 5. If we can score over 5 runs, I'll be happy. And I want to see this bullpen continue to do well. Tuesday night is still a winnable game. The Marlins, they're 3-1 this year. They're getting off to a good start, but they also did play the Pittsburgh Pirates, so you don't want to take that or overreact with it. But I want to see Senga come out of the gates with a great start. I want to see Senga get off to a very good start this year. In spring training, he put up a 2 ERA. In his most recent outing in spring training, it was against Washington, so not a great team. But in 3.2 innings, he struck out 6 Nationals, allowed 1 run, which was unearned, walked 2, 3.1 innings against St. Louis, allowed 7 hits. So that wasn't a great outing. But his first outing in spring training against Miami. So against the Marlins in spring training, Senga went 2 innings, struck out 2 guys, only allowed 2 hits, no runs. So I think Senga can pitch well against Miami. I'm actually going to take a peek at Senga's stats. We did that with, we'll also take a peek at David Peterson while we're at it. Kodai Senga's stats versus the Marlins. Let's see if he's had any success. Yeah, Senga 3-0, undefeated against the Marlins throughout his career, which was basically all in 2023. Pitched 4 times, 3-0, 2.42 ERA, 25 strikeouts in those 4 games. So let's go over start by start. April 2nd against Miami, 5.1 innings, 3 hits allowed, 1 earned run. And then pitched against them in April again, just 6 days later. 6 innings, 3 hits, 1 run. Against Miami in September. He had 2 starts in September against Miami, 6 innings, 7 hits, 2 earned runs. And then his final start against Miami in 2023, 5 innings, 3 hits, 2 earned runs. So Senga's had a lot of success against Miami. Only 4 games, but, if anything, they've gotten worse, I would say, since 2023, lineup-wise. Now let's take a look at David Peterson. His stats versus the Marlins. Clay Holmes, we can look at his stats. I'll look at him, but he was a reliever against them. So, all right. David Peterson also, he pitched really well against Miami last year. 5 innings, only 2 runs allowed last year. And then 1 bad start, 5 innings, 4 runs allowed in June. But in 2023, he had 2 starts against Miami. He pitched, only allowed 1 run across 5 innings and no runs across 7 innings. one start in March, one start in September of 2023. So Peterson overall against Miami in 9 appearances, he's put up a 2.80 ERA, a 4-2 record. So Peterson and Senga both have had success against Miami. So I'm hoping that continues on Monday and Tuesday because we need to get the ball rolling. But mainly it's on the offense. It is on the offense. All right, Clay Holmes probably going to be the day 3 starter in this series on Wednesday night. All right, Clay Holmes, let's take a look at his stats versus the Marlins, and we'll talk about his opening day out and in general. Holmes, not as much success, but still decent against the Marlins. In 9 appearances, has a 3.60 ERA. He's never pitched more than 2 innings against them, so that's gonna change on Wednesday night. But I mean, Holmes, opening day, definitely a little bit of nerves, you can tell. The walks were up. He had 4 walks, but he only allowed 5 hits. Only allowing 5 hits, that's a very good sign. He didn't use his kick change as much as I'd like to see him use it. He threw his sinker a lot, the sinker that he's had a lot of success with throughout his career. But in spring training, he wasn't using his sinker 50% of the time. He was, experimenting with his changeup, with his slider, with his sweeper, with his four seam, with his kick change, like I said. So I'd like to see him not necessarily experiment, but I'd like to see him utilize every single pitch he has in his arsenal. Because if Clay Holmes is going to have success in 2025 as a starting pitcher, he's going to need to use every single pitch. He's going to have to. His sinker is great. Don't get me wrong. But he has a great changeup. He has a great sweeper and a slider. Use them. Use them. Because he used them in spring training. And I know it's only spring training. But if it worked in spring training and you wanted to experiment with them and the experiment went well, then why not continue to use them? So that's why I got confused on opening day after seeing, exactly which pitch he did throw. So, listen, one start, he kept us in a position to win. But now it's time for Clay Holmes to go out there and prove us that his spring training wasn't a huge fluke. Because you look at his numbers throughout his career, and Clay Holmes has the ability to be a good starter. Last year in 2024, ground ball, bat to ball profile. Let's take a look at it. Ground ball percentage, 66.7 throughout his career ground ball percentage, but a 64.6% in 2024. On opening day, wow, 71.4% of the batted balls were ground balls. That's a good sign. 21.4% of them were line drives on opening day. 7.1% were fly balls. Another good sign. But the walks is what killed him. So if he can limit those walks, I think he's going to have a good outing. I think he's going to have a really, really good outing. All right. Hopefully it's a sweep. We could use it. Get these Yankee fans off our backs. But speaking of the Yankees, let's talk about them because there's a lot to talk about with the Yankees. Yankees absolutely, they just laid the smackdown on the Brewers. They laid the smackdown. They scored 4 runs on opening day, 20 runs just yesterday on Saturday's game. And then today in their final matchup, they cap it off with a 12-3 victory. Aaron Judge hit his 4th home run in 2 games. So now Aaron Judge's numbers are ridiculous. He's got 4 home runs. He's got 11 RBIs through 3 games this year. He's got a batting average of .545. A slugging percentage of 1.818. That is insane. That is insane. Wow. An OPS well over 2,000. But Aaron Judge is Aaron Judge. We all know how good Aaron Judge is. We all know that Aaron Judge, is he going to hit a home run every single game? No, but he's going to hit a lot of home runs. Probably 50 plus at the very least. And he's probably going to win his 3rd MVP award. And he's actually like one of the only guys not using this torpedo bat. And I thought it was funny. After the game today, somebody asked him, hey, Judge, why aren't you using the torpedo bat like everybody else? And Judge basically replied with, because throughout my career, I've done amazing with a regular bat. Why switch? So I thought that was pretty funny what Aaron Judge said about not using the torpedo bat. Like, why would Judge need to use one? I get Anthony Volpe. They literally made the switch to the torpedo bats because Anthony Volpe can't hit. And now Anthony Volpe, with the torpedo bat, hits 2 home runs in his first 3 games. But Volpe went 0 for 4 today with a strikeout, so the torpedo bat didn't help him too much. But I want to talk about Jazz Chisholm Jr. because Jazz Chisholm, I had him as the breakout player for the Yankees in 2025 on my pregame or my preseason predictions podcast. And so far, I know it's only 3 games, but Jazz Chisholm Jr., he's looking real good. He's hitting .417 with a 1.167 slug percentage, a .500 on base percentage today. He hit 2 home runs, went 3 for 4 with 5 RBIs. Just yesterday, when the Yankees scored 20 runs, he went 2 for 5 with a home run. So he's got 3 home runs already. I think Jazz can finish with 25 plus homers and 30 plus stolen bases easily. Easily. Like I said, you look at the stories when he was with Miami. You know, it was Miguel Rojas, you know, tearing up his cleats, dumping milk in his cleats, like really just hazing him in an era where hazing is just, you're a loser if you haze. Like, you're just a loser. Like, what's the point of it? What do you gain out of it? So, and Jazz is still relatively young. Jazz is 27 years old. So I don't think we've seen the best of Jazz Chisholm. He's entering the prime years of his career. When he was at the Yankees last year, only 46 games, but to no surprise, the change of scenery definitely helped. 273 batting average, 825 OPS, 23 RBIs, 11 home runs in those 46 games. So, loves the short porch. Hitting left-handed in Yankee Stadium is always a plus. And he's in the same lineup as Aaron Judge every single day now. Whereas when he was with the Marlins, he was the best hitter in that lineup basically every single year. So now Jazz doesn't have to be the best hitter in the lineup, where he had to be the best hitter in his lineup throughout his entire career. So not only is he in Yankee Stadium as a left-hander with the short porch, but he's in a much better lineup. And I think that helps because he actually has protection for really the first time in his career. So I do expect Jazz, maybe not, he's definitely not going to continue to hit 500 with over 1,000 OPS. But if he can be an 825 plus OPS guy, I think he can. If he can be a 260, 265 plus hitter, which I think he can, and hit 25 plus home runs, which I think he can, the Yankees are going to have a really good lineup. Like, they're not going to score 12, 20 runs every single game. But if Jazz turns into the player that we thought he was going to be when he started his career in 2020, the Yankees will have a much better lineup than we thought they were going to have going into this year. So, still have Jazz as my breakout player. Like I said, he's not going to hit 500 throughout the year, but so far, so good from Jazz. Another guy who I had as a wild card in this lineup was Ben Rice. And Ben Rice hit a bomb today, a second deck home run. He went 2 for 4. He had a great opening series against Milwaukee. Went 1 for 2 on opening day. Drew a walk, so he got on base. Got on base twice. And then today, got on base twice again. Well, home run. Didn't really get on base, but he touched all 4 bases. And then he also had another base knock. So Ben Rice so far, I mean, only 3 games, but when you look at Ben Rice's minor league numbers, they're eye-popping. I get it. He struggled last year in 50 games in relief for Anthony Rizzo when he went down. But when you look at 2024, his numbers in the minors, specifically the 30 games he had in AAA, in 30 games in the AAA level last year, he put up a 1.088 OPS, a 294 batting average. He drove in 33 runs and had 12 home runs in just 30 games. He had a great spring training. So I think he can be the wild card in this lineup. And when Stan does come back, because we all know now that Stanton will be back at some point this year, he's swinging a bat, which is a good sign. But if Ben Rice is just a shade of what he was in the minors, where across 4 minor league seasons, he's hit 282, 399 on base percentage, 935 OPS. If he's a shade of that, Yankee fans, Aaron Boone, Brian Cashman, they're going to have to sit down and ask themselves, do we want Stanton being the DH over Ben Rice? Because if Ben Rice is hitting like he's hit in spring training and in the minors, and so far through his first 2 games, I think it would be foolish for them to take Ben Rice out of the lineup. So Ben Rice has a real opportunity to surprise a lot of people this year and to make his mark as a legit MLB player because he's 25 years old. At this point in his career, at his age, he probably doesn't want to go back down to the minors. So there's a little bit of motivation there to not go back down to the minors. And he's also the wild card in this lineup because Jazz, like I said, I expect him to be the breakout player. Aaron Judge, Cody Bellinger, Paul Goldschmidt, the veterans in the lineup. You just need one of these young guys, whether it's Volpe, whether it's Wells, whether it's Ben Rice, whether it's Jason Dominguez. 1 out of 4 of those guys, I think 2 out of 4, I think it's going to be Wells and Ben Rice. 2 out of 4 of those guys, they produce. Yankees have the best lineup in the American League, no doubt about it. Probably a top 5 lineup in MLB. Do I think they surpass the Braves, the Phillies, the Dodgers, and the Mets? Maybe the Braves, Phillies, or Mets, but definitely not the Dodgers. But still, having the best lineup in the American League will help. And with their starting rotation, so far, it hasn't looked bad. Max Fried had a little bit of a blunder yesterday, but Max Fried is Max Fried. He's going to figure it out. Marcus Stroman actually looked pretty good today. I mean, Marcus Stroman threw 4.2 innings, only allowed 5 hits, 1 walk, did let up the home run, but outside of that, 1 bad pitch. He pitched great. He did pitch great. So I got to give him credit there. Tim Hill looked like the Tim Hill of last year when he got traded to the Yankees, 1.1 innings, 3 strikeouts. He looked dominant. Mark Leiter, he has had his ups and downs as a Yankee. Last year in 21 games, he put up a 4.99 ERA. He's had his ups and downs throughout his career since 2017, since he came into the league. But he had a clean inning, struck out 2. Fernando Cruz, they picked him up this past offseason. He had a good inning of work. And in 2022, Fernando Cruz did put up a 1.23 ERA, only 14 games, but, the Yankees definitely saw something in him. Ryan Yarbrough, who is another pickup over the offseason, he had a very good 2024 season, so it was a good pickup to add him to the bullpen, and so far, so good out of him. So the Yankees bullpen, similar to the Mets bullpen, has looked really good. So, for both these teams, I think they both have a great lineup. They both have a great bullpen. The starting rotation is the only concern I have for both these teams. And if their starting rotation can just keep them in a position to win the game by the time they get it to the bullpen, their offense should do the job and their bullpen should do the job. And I think both these teams are undoubtedly postseason teams in 2025. No doubt about it. Yankees have the ability to be the top team in the American League. It's going to be hard to do without Garrett Cole and Louis Heel half the year and Jake Cousins until May and missing Giancarlo Stanton probably half the year at the very least. Mets, same thing. You're starting the season off without Sean Manaea, without Frankie Montas, without Francisco Alvarez, without Jeff McNeil. But they're still great teams. I don't think the Yankees are going to score 20 to 12 runs every single game, but their offense has looked good. The early signs, Paul Goldschmidt's catching up to the fastball, proving me wrong. Did they face great pitchers? No. Did they face pitchers with high velocity? No. But Goldschmidt looking like he did in the second half. Bellinger, I had him having a very good year with the Yankees, considering he's that left-hander in the short porch, considering he's in the same lineup as Aaron Judge. Sometimes he's going to be hitting in front of him, sometimes hitting behind him. That should help. And then, like I said, if 2 out of the 4 of these young guys, Dominguez, Volpe, Wells, Ben Rice, if 2 out of 4 of them, if they hit, if they produce, the Yankees will have a top 5 lineup in MLB. So far, so good. It looks like they do. But it's only 3 games in. Let's see how they finish in a few months. Same with the Mets. We don't want to overreact through 3 games. But so far, both teams, you take away a lot of great signs from early on in the year. A lot of great signs so far. All right. Yankees off tomorrow. We're going to be going live. I think the Yankees are off tomorrow. Let me just fact check myself there. Yeah, Yankees are off tomorrow. Yankees going to be going up against where is it? The Arizona Diamondbacks. Will Warren against Corbin Burns. So this is really the test for the offense, I guess. Corbin Burns, but I want to see actually Corbin Burns numbers versus the Yankees because he did face them a lot last year when he was with the Orioles. All right, let's see, Mr. Burns. Corbin Burns in 3 appearances, 1.42 ERA. Last year, he did shut down the Yankees. So maybe it is their first loss, but if they can hit against Corbin Burns, you got to buy into this hype because Corbin Burns is a great pitcher. So if they hit again on Tuesday, I think you buy stock in the Yankees lineup 100%. All right, that's it for me today. We'll see you guys tomorrow after Mets Marlins. I'm out of here. Deuces.